The instant Yandy Smith Harris entered the room, something changed. Because this was not the self-assured, collected Yandy that the world had seen on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta for years. The individuals seated around her could sense right once that she was carrying a weight that had obviously been growing for a long time. The chat first appeared to be typical, just another get-together where pals check in on one another and discuss the turmoil of life. However, a crack appeared in Yandy's voice. Abruptly, the whole atmosphere of the space shifted. She started speaking with a softness that startled everyone listening, as opposed to the powerful, assertive woman people are accustomed to seeing. She acknowledged something that no one had anticipated hearing aloud. She had been experiencing extreme depression. She was emotionally spent to the point where it was hard for her to continue acting as though nothing was wrong, not simply exhausted and stressed. Yandy has been portrayed for years by viewers as the strong one, the organizer, the mediator, and the lady who manages the constant pressure of celebrity while maintaining connections and family. However, now the mask finally stumbled. As she described how the burden of her marriage, troubles with Yandy Harris, public attention, and unwavering expectations had been quietly accumulating inside of her, her voice faltered. The room became silent when she eventually spoke the words aloud to the gathering. When nobody anticipated that Yandy, who usually seems to have everything under control, would acknowledge that she was overpowered emotionally. Her pain wasn't the only thing that shocked her. It was realizing how long she had kept it a secret. And as everyone in the room listened intently, it became evident that this discussion was going to expose a lot more than anyone had anticipated. Regarding for many years, Yandy Smith Harris has been regarded as one of the most powerful figures in the hip-hop and romance industries. Athens, her portrayal of herself as someone who always had control over her emotions and surroundings, has been observed by viewers as she navigates upheaval, relationship problems, family responsibilities, and career pressures. However, many were blind to what was behind. The scenes revealed the amount of pressure that had been gradually increasing. For years, Yandy has played the position of the responsible one, the one who tries to hold everyone together when things go wrong. She has frequently been asked to maintain her composure when everything around her changed, from handling family disputes to responding to public criticism. That kind of responsibility might gradually become too much to handle, particularly if people believe that you are strong and will never falter. She was held to very high standards. Fans saw a self-assured businesswoman, a devoted partner, and a caring mother. However, those positions also involved ongoing inspection. Viewers, bloggers, and social media pundits scrutinized every choice she made, rarely taking into account the mental damage brought on by that degree of exposure. Her difficult marriage to Yandy Harris was at the heart of a lot of that pressure. For many years, their relationship has been one of the most talked about plots in the larger love and hip-hop realm. Viewers saw them deal with challenging circumstances that most couples would find difficult to handle in private, much less in front of cameras, over the course of several seasons. And millions of spectators, moments of loyalty, selflessness, and fortitude were all part of their love story. However, it also featured protracted separation, gossip, and harsh public criticism. Emotional weariness might result from being in a relationship that is continuously scrutinized online by strangers. The internet rarely lets the past go away, even when couples make an effort to move on. In addition to keeping her marriage intact, Yandy had to guard her emotional stability while everyone else conjectured about every aspect of their lives. The part she plays in her group of friends and co-workers added another level of pressure. Relationships between cast members on reality TV can rapidly get messy. Millions of people watch as conflicts break out, alliances change, and personal disputes become into narratives. Yandy frequently found herself taking on the role of mediator, attempting to diffuse tensions or persuade others to consider alternative viewpoints. While that duty may appear commendable on film, continuously taking in other problems can gradually deplete a person's emotional reserves. Everyone looks to you for support when you're the strong friend, but very few people pause to ask whether you need help too. The difficulty of juggling parenting with the erratic lifestyle that comes with celebrity is another. As a mother, Yandy has often expressed her desire to give her kids security and opportunities. However, it takes ongoing energy to manage corporate endeavors, filming schedules, and public attention while raising a family. Even when they are having internal struggles, parents frequently experience pressure to appear strong for their kids. Remember that emotions of loneliness might result from emotional repression. You start keeping your suffering to yourself because you think that sharing it could make you seem feeble or unqualified. Many people in her immediate vicinity were unaware of the emotional buildup that resulted from all these variables. Yandy appeared successful and calm from the outside. She supported her family, managed business ventures, went to events, and made television appearances. However, the weight of unresolved emotional tension, expectations, and obligations was mounting. The setting she was in made the issue even more challenging. Because vulnerability can easily be misconstrued as weakness or used against someone in future conflicts, reality television pushes people to project a strong personality. The discrepancy between Yandy's public persona and her inner state of mind widened over time. She felt more pressure to uphold her image of strength the more powerful she seemed to the outer world. Admitting emotional suffering became nearly hard as a result of this cycle. People anticipated Yandy should always have solutions, maintain composure, and exhibit fortitude. However, even the strongest people eventually reach a point where it is impossible to ignore the emotional burden. She ultimately sat down with the group and said that she was having difficulties because of her background. Her words didn't just appear. They were the outcome of years' worth of pressure, difficulties in relationships, public scrutiny, obligations to one's family, and the unwavering need to project strength at all times. It wasn't just a theatrical confession for TV when she eventually admitted that she had been depressed. It was the expression of feelings that had been simmering for a very long time, and once those emotions began when she came out, nobody in her immediate vicinity realized that the woman they believed to be in control had been fighting a secret inner battle all along. When Yandy Smith Harris eventually gave up attempting to keep things together, the tension in the room changed. Viewers have seen her portray herself as the woman with the answers for years on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, the one capable of navigating chaos without showing signs of shaking. However, something was obviously different throughout this group discussion. Everyone seated around her sensed the weight in her voice right away. When Yandy started sharing how much the strain had been impacting her, what had begun as a routine conversation gradually became much more emotional. Rather than using her typical assured tone, she revealed that she had been experiencing emotional and mental difficulties in ways she had never previously disclosed. Because it revealed a part of Yandy that people don't often witness, the moment seemed raw and awkward. As she went on, the group came to the realization that the powerful persona she had cultivated for so long had been concealing something grave. She clarified that she had gradually become emotionally exhausted due to the ongoing stress of her marriage issues with Yandy Smith Harris, the public scrutiny of their relationship, and the obligation of being the person everyone counts on. As she talked of feeling psychologically spent, overburdened, and worn out, the group was stunned to hear those remarks from someone who usually seems unshakable. Many of the folks seated next to her appeared shocked, since they had never witnessed Yandy allow herself to be that exposed. The conversation took a startling turn when she candidly acknowledged that she had been depressed. Emotional admissions are common in reality television settings. It felt different though, this time. Or it wasn't given for attention or dramatic impact. It sounded like someone who had finally come to the conclusion that it was impossible to remain silent. Yandy clarified that she had neglected to take care of herself emotionally because she had been too busy trying to be strong for everyone around her, including her husband, kids, friends, and even the audience watching her life unfold. The room's dynamics were instantly altered by that disclosure. Everyone adopted a more encouraging and attentive stance in place of the disagreements or debates that occasionally occurred during group talks on the show. People leaned forward and listened intently, attempting to comprehend how someone they thought was so strong could have gotten to such an agonizing emotional state. The group was compelled to face a reality that many people ignore. Sometimes the most resilient people are the ones who silently bear the greatest emotional burdens. However, her admission of depression didn't end the discussion. Another layer of tension emerged as Yandy continued to open up. She disclosed that a portion of her emotional battle stemmed from feeling as if she had to manage her marriage virtually by herself while contending with ongoing public inquiry. She was under too much pressure to manage her own emotional well-being and defend her connection with Yandy. She was caught between needing time to work through her emotions and wanting to remain faithful to her family. As the group started to understand the gravity of what she was explaining, the room became more quieter. Many people who watched the site afterwards reported that it was like seeing someone finally let go after years of holding their breath. Yandy wasn't merely expressing grief. Few people around her really grasped the weariness she was displaying as a result of her responsibilities. As she talked, it became evident that this was more than a fleeting emotional exchange. It was about years of pressure coming to the surface in one potent confession. Everyone was shocked to learn that the woman who frequently assisted others in resolving their issues had been secretly struggling with her own issues all along. Yandy was no longer the organizer, the fixer, or the one who kept everyone else together. For the first time, she was just someone who wanted to be heard. As the group took in what she had just exposed, a new query started to arise in everyone's thoughts. What would happen to Yandy's future, her connections, and the life she had fought so hard to create if she had been feeling this overwhelmed for such a long time? The energy in the room didn't just change. It got heavier after Yandy Smith acknowledged that she had been feeling down. What had begun as an honest moment swiftly evolved into something more. Because the talk started revealing issues that had been subtly developing for a long time until Yandy opened the door to her feelings. The group came to the conclusion that this was more than a terrible week or brief stress. This person has been carrying emotional burdens for years while acting as though nothing was wrong. The more Yandy talked, the more it became apparent that her suffering wasn't unique. It was related to several aspects of her life that had been gradually wearing her down. She mentioned her friendship with Yandy Smith as one of the main sources of strain. Particularly in the continual spotlight of hip-hop and love, their marriage has always been difficult. Atlanta and the larger hip-hop and love scenes global. Every argument becomes a plot point, every miscommunication turns into rumors, and every personal conflict turns into a public debate when one is in a public relationship. Yandy revealed that she was emotionally spent attempting to keep her marriage intact while juggling the opinions of others. It seemed to her that she was always standing up for something that people were eager to see fail. Given that as the discussion went on, the group started probing farther into Yandy's private experiences. At that point, the second significant turn of events emerged. Despite being surrounded by people who loved her, Yandy acknowledged that she frequently felt alone. It wasn't loneliness in the conventional sense, but rather the emotional detachment that results from constantly feeling accountable for one's strength. Everyone looked on her for stability, counsel, and support. However, very few people took the time to inquire if she required the same assistance in return. The group was shocked by the realization. A few of the individuals seated there had known Yandy for many years. For the first time, though, they were hearing these emotions. Are they compelled to face an uncomfortable situation? Sometimes the most self-assured folks are actually the ones that are most struggling. Even her closest friends were unaware of the amount of suffering Yandy was carrying because she had become so adept at projecting strength. Then, the conversation changed on the ways that public attention and celebrity might exacerbate emotional difficulties. Dramatic personalities and strong beliefs are frequently rewarded on reality television. But quiet vulnerability is rarely given room. Yandy clarified that in order to avoid coming out as weak or unstable on camera, she had learned to conceal her feelings. Her tendency to repress her emotions eventually became a vicious cycle in which she continued to take in tension without letting it out. Her admission that she occasionally wondered if she was genuinely content with the life she had created was another moment that took the group by surprise. Everything appeared successful on paper. A family, commercial endeavors, TV appearances, and a positive public image. Yet in her heart, she had been detached from the happiness she believed such achievements would bring. She had progressively become emotionally exhausted rather than satisfied as a result of the strain to uphold her position as the responsible one. As more people in the room started to react, the discussion grew more sentimental. Some provided assurance and reminded that strength is not diminished by vulnerability. Others acknowledged that they had felt comparable emotions, but had never discussed them in public. What began as Yandy's confession gradually evolved into a more comprehensive conversation on expectations for mental health and the underlying challenges people face while seeming successful. However, the most impactful part of the discussion occurred when someone discovered that Yandy had been looking after everyone else for years. She had attempted to maintain relationships during trying times by standing up for friends or family members. Now the question was straightforward, yet deep. Yandy was being cared for. By whom? That query hung in the air since no one had a definitive response. The group was compelled to reevaluate their perception of her function in their life. They started urging her to put her own health first, rather than expecting her to be the strong one all the time. The realization that this chat was about more than just one emotional breakdown was the second turn of events. It concerned the prospect of a significant change in Yandy's life. She might approach her relationships, profession, and even her function in the group differently if she finally began to prioritize her mental health rather than bearing everyone else's worries. One thing became evident as the discussion came to an end. It was difficult to seal the door that Yandy's honesty had opened. Because when someone openly acknowledges that they are having emotional difficulties, it compels those around them to acknowledge a reality that they may have previously disregarded. At last, the resilient woman on whom everyone relied had acknowledged that she also required assistance. The group now had to make a decision about how to react to that reality. When Yandy Smith Harris eventually acknowledged that she had been experiencing depression, the group's mood completely shifted in a way that no one had anticipated. What had begun as a straightforward get-together swiftly evolved into one of the most poignant discussions anyone had ever heard in the Atlanta hip-hop and love scenes. The group was abruptly confronted with something genuine and intensely personal, as opposed to the typical arguments, shade, or dramatic confrontations that viewers frequently witness on the show. Whoa, they were no longer witnessing a plot develop. They were seeing a loved one publicly acknowledge that she had been fighting emotional suffering in silence. Nobody seemed to know exactly what to say. For a brief moment, even the stillness spoke. Amounts. Yandy had spent years portraying herself as resilient enough to face any challenge life presented. When people were arguing, she was the one who intervened, the person who offered guidance when a relationship was failing. No matter how hectic things were around her, she always seemed emotionally solid. Observing her confess, she was overpowered, making the gang reevaluate how they perceived her strength. Rather than perceiving it as limitless, they started to understand that it had boundaries just like everyone else. Nearly instantly, a number of others at the table started to show support. Some of them also told Yandy that they appreciated her candor because it's never easy to talk about depression, especially in front of friends and cameras. People often conceal mental health issues out of fear of being misinterpreted or condemned. By being honest about how she had been feeling, Yandy unwittingly made it easier for others to acknowledge their own personal struggles. The subject gradually shifted from concentrating solely on her suffering to talking about how many people bear tension in silence while acting as though nothing is wrong. The repercussions also included her marriage to Harris, played by Mendices. More viewers have witnessed the dramatic ups and downs of their relationship over the years. The way their story has developed on television has been influenced by loyalty, distance, rumors, and public scrutiny. The group was able to comprehend how much Yandy had been carrying when she acknowledged that maintaining and defending that relationship under continual criticism was a contributing factor in her emotional depletion. Striving to maintain a steady marriage as millions of it can be like living under a microscope when watchers examine every second. A few group members admitted that at times they had thought Yandy was just strong enough to manage everything. They were compelled to acknowledge that presumption could have been unjust when they heard her acknowledge that she occasionally felt alone, even in the company of others. Strength can frequently turn into a trap because people cease questioning if someone truly needs assistance when they seem capable of managing everything.